Needless to say, works like this, Ronald Ventura, made 123,000 US dollar in 2012, is quickly concluded as the example of showing how the market has gone down. So basically the point I'm trying to make that with the entrenchment of the auction market, it sort of has paralyzed aesthetics of a potential buyer. You know, you can almost make the distinction between what is sellable and less sellable, tangible. And you can make it in point forms to tell your collectors what to buy so that you can make money. And there's artists like Uniza, which in the height of the market will make 108,000 US dollar. That was in 2007. And then after the crisis, it's 67,000 US dollar. I mean, there are very many more examples which I will not go on. But what I do want to say that with the current scene, with the current sort of players, this phenomenon of the auction darlings, sort of making like auction house as the trendsetters, and really is a role that I always felt very uncomfortable, because I mean, I could tell you that I could have a list of dream artists to have in the auction, but it doesn't mean that I'll get them. And I always feel sort of like wholly responsible when there's someone coming out someone coming out from the market, someone from outside the market come in and comment to me that, oh, so all Indonesian artists are figurative based on what they see in the catalog. Or someone coming from the market telling me that, why don't you have such and such artists? Don't you think he's important? I mean, certainly I do, he's very important, but I just can't find him. The collector doesn't want to sell him. So with this sort of like, what makes us, what makes auction house so important and like having the role of a trendsetter? I think it is quite fair to say that in Southeast Asia particularly, at the moment, we do have a lack of consistent gallery representations and institutional support. As I speak, of course, things are changing, things are improving. And auction house for last 20, 30 years, being the ones that have a concerted marketing effort, is indeed seen as very, very powerful. So I just want to sort of highlight recent happenings only to illustrate this point. Not so much to speak of the controversy, but not so much to bash an individual, but just to illustrate my point, the points I've been trying to make. I'm not so sure if any one of you are aware of the art fair in Singapore, which is called Art Stage, which is going to be 3 years old next year, in 2013. And like a normal day in the art world, there's always this fair share of juicy stories and all that. But you know, Art Stage is like the media darlings. You know, he always gives us very controversial issues. What they did was that this year, in May or June, the art fair director announced that they are going to have an Indonesian pavilion for the first time in 2013. Now, what does that mean? It means that Art Stage, as the art fair, is going to, first of all, he's going to list up a list of Indonesian artists, which they think is the important ones and the up-and-coming one. And Art Stage is going to speak to this group of artists directly and commission them to do works for this Indonesian pavilion. And then people say, oh, okay, you're going to talk to the artist directly. How about the commission? Who's going to get the commission, you know? And please don't quote me because it changes from time to time, so I'm no longer sure. Because I think at the moment they are saying that there is the proceeds of the work is going to cover the production costs and the shipping costs, and the leftover is going to be divided between the artist, Art Stage, and if he has a dealer. I think that is what has been said. Please don't quote me on this because this part I'm really not sure because they changed also, okay? So, right, this news is out. Obviously, it was such a juicy story, so everybody pick up, you know. And one of my favorite sort of report on this is art fairs turned dealers at Art Stage Singapore to promote Indonesian art. And Mr. Lorenzo was quoted as saying that it is a certain change of philosophy of how an art fair works, he said. We interfere here in a structure of galleries and artists. But I would never do this in New York and Europe because you have there a gallery infrastructure that is working. So here we have to do it. If not, we have an entire art scene that doesn't have a chance to move to the next stage. We are only doing this with Indonesia, not Japan, not China, where you have a very strong art scene, he explained. Adding this to show the fairs to show really the best of Indonesia and not just the artists represented by the galleries. I mean, it's, okay, let me go to, so this issue is being discussed by a local journalist in Singapore, which is Filipino, but based in Singapore and talks about the Singapore art scene. So you see the art journalism is improving. His name is Mayo Martin. And he gets it, he gets issue. So here he announced that the Indonesian pavilion in Art Stage, and he comments. So he says that the idea of gallery exclusivity is a tricky one, especially in this region, meaning Southeast Asia. So if anything, the issues that this new Indonesian pavilion brings up just highlights the wild west state of the art market and the tenuous relationship between the artist and the gallery in our part of the world. So he agrees that it's a wild west. You know, it's the infrastructure is not that consolidated. But he says his rationale is that Indonesian is the next big thing. One, it's got artists right up there with the best of the West, and there's a strong collector scene. But the gallery institution isn't that great, according to Rudolph. And this year saw a 50% drop in Indonesian galleries participating in major art fairs. And you continue to say that with the tricky artist gallery situation over there, meaning Southeast Asia, artists unable to showcase in art fairs because no one's representing them, and with Western galleries hovering around the region to snatch this under-the-radar, top-notch artists, the Commission's showcase was a way to put the spotlight on them. I mean, how is doing the Commission Pavilion help further with bringing Indonesian art scene to the next stage? One, I don't see that as a solution. And if you say that infrastructure is not there, therefore we disregard the rules of the games and go around it, is that going to help with a ready sort of like a maturing, infant state of development? I think it's going to kill it rather than to nurture it. And so my point is that I do agree that in Southeast Asia, this ecosystem meaning the system where the market is, and then you need to have your institutions, collectors, writers, critics, etc., is in a stage of being developed. So, and as such, a commercial viable category like auction houses will be doing Asian art auctions, you know, it seems like a very attractive, and it's also seen as giving it a lot of legality, you know. And all the more when you see books being published on contemporary Asian art, recently by Melissa Chu, and she would sort of discuss Nara along with Masriadi, and you can imagine this is sending out like really exciting news to the local art scene in Indonesia and say that, oh great, we are being compared to the best of the best, you know. And then you have events like Murakami being exhibited in such a, well, what can I say, extravagant manner, you know. And then beginning, you will see that this is a house of collectors in Indonesia, and look at these collections. You have Ruoh, a Filipino contemporary artist, Zhu Ming, and a Japanese sculptor. this is his home. So Asian art collecting to me is certainly a viable commercial entity, but this entity, which is very advantageous to have right now for a market that's beginning to develop, because with the money, with the highlight, with the limelight, it sort of attracts people to look at it. Newspapers are talking about it. You know, I'm invited here because certainly someone is interested to know more about it. You know, it's not without its burdens. That's the point I'm trying to say. And I think with the highlighting of the controversy earlier on that I discussed, it's a very fair observations. I think everybody acknowledge that the ecosystem, the art community in Southeast Asia is in the phase of being shaped. It's not as mature as many other markets. But the question is, really, given the context, which is the dominance of the art market, the auction market, the coming of the Western galleries, the emergence of art fairs, the rush to find the next talent, really, what constitute the voices of the community, So it seems to me at the moment the hierarchy is formed. So we have the auction house, the art fairs, the collectors, and the last is the critics, the curators, and the academics. So I don't really, well, I certainly have some answers, but I'm not going to discuss this in the public, so that I'll get into trouble. But I do acknowledge that this phenomena, and I always end by saying that it is perhaps a Wild West, but I am seeing improvement. I am seeing very promising development. I'm seeing very exciting people coming into the industry, not just as an artist, but as art writer, critics, and galleries and dealers. I see really a very exciting and very adventurous time to come. Thank you.
谢谢龚小姐。大家因为有这个翻译，所以可以慢慢的听到她这个有新加坡风格的这个英文，非常快速的把她这个好像多年的经验做了一个总结论啊，我是收获很多啊，因为她从这个整个东南亚的这个各方面，还讲到了一些收藏的一些精髓的这个方法，那么所以其实区域的结合跟这个扩大区域，其实你要是了解的话，引发你的好奇心的，因为艺术的发展好像似乎都一样，但是你了解了那个区域的话，你会对那个区域产生好奇心，所以前几年在这个整个东南亚艺术家在拍卖的表现上越来越好的时候，也引发了我的好奇心，所以我也跑到这个巴厘岛，受到高更的启发，然后去了巴厘岛旅行，想要碰到马斯利亚蒂啊，但是好像没有机会，因为他住在交加，那么但是我们已经到了巴厘岛呢，我就建议我的这个我老婆跟孩子，我说我们来感受一下高更的那个生活啊。然后我就到那个巴厘岛住的旅馆的海边啊，在那边游荡，然后看到一个巴厘岛的渔夫在捕鱼啊，然后我就跟那个渔夫看他长得还蛮英勇的，然后就问他说：“你这个鱼可不可以卖给我几条，我带回旅馆，请他这个烤给我吃？”然后那个渔夫建议说：“那要不然这样好了，我烤给你吃，你晚上7点到我们家去。”哎，你家住哪？他说：“你看那里有个茅草屋子在海边啊。”那我说：“好，太好了！”我就带着我的老婆孩子去感受这个东南亚最实际的非观光客的感受，对吧？就到他们家，我就带着啤酒啊，带着什么，然后就去吃烤鱼去了。哇，那天真的是感受很高兴。但是也有风险啊！我的老婆跟孩子拉肚子拉了2天啊。到了第2天没办法了，我找到了最有效的药，最便宜的黄连素，是北京的药，吃了那个好了。那个感受让我觉得，其实你对区域连结的时候，你要真正的去体会这个区域，你才知道。你不去菲律宾走走，你不知道Roland Ventura 你不到巴厘岛 Georgia， 你不知道这个纽曼马斯利亚蒂，然后这个你不去这个拍卖公司看一下，你也不知道李曼峰、阿凡蒂、古纳万这些艺术家他们的这个拍卖表现。其实刚才在龚小姐的讲话里，我们已经学到很多的一个如何对挑选艺术品产生自信的这些因素。其实是很好的一个经验的分享。我觉得跨区域的座谈以后，希望在艺术博览会上常常发生啊。那么事实上，亚洲这个区域已经扩大了。好，那么我们剩下的一点点时间呢，我们还是按照这个大会的安排，我们请这个主讲人坐上台，然后看现场有没有更好奇的朋友能够发问。刚才就是说听到的不足的，你想补充的，或者是你有好奇的问题想要问大家的，所以我们请这个主讲人都坐到台上来啊 ，please。好，剩下的时间其实很短了啊，原则上只有10分钟。现场有没有任何的问题要问这个台上的专家主讲人？有关于韩国，有关于土耳其 Turkey， 然后有关于这个整个东南亚，有没有什么问题？还是大家都讲得太清楚了吗？要是没有问题的话，我建议啊，就是他们大概有戴耳机，我建议就是说，请3位主讲人就这次来到博览会，看到了这个博览会整个亚洲聚在一起，应该是16个国家，15个国家，然后将近160家画廊，这个是台北国际艺术博览会的一次记录啊。这个在这个整个占用面积的这个范围上，还有这个参加画廊的数量啊，而且现在这一任理事长他为了要感受到整个亚洲的竞争的效应，看到香港的这个博览会的积极发展，所以这一次他还采用了5家国际专业的画廊作为评审，然后其实是筛选掉有10几20家这个原来台湾画廊协会的多少家？40家啊，因为在台湾的这个国际艺术博览会的主办单位是画廊协会，画廊协会呢的会员将近有102家，那么刷掉40家，本来他以为他可以参加这个博览会的画廊啊，所以你可以想象这个台湾的这个画廊协会在提升国际艺术博览会上承受的压力啊，因为原本在这个整个20年的画廊协会的发展上，以往只要是会员都可以参加这个博览会啊。那么所以这一次的突破其实是一个很重要的一步也是一个契机了，因为这个契机让我们看到了台湾的竞争力，然后也可以看到这个台湾收藏家所期待的变化啊，所以。当然这一次有国际的画廊来了不少，还有邀请了将近300多位的收藏家啊，从各地来到台湾，参与这个博览会。那么，所以这一次的这个博览会如此的发展，而3位各地区的专家啊，也都看到这个博览会，要不然我们请他们轮流的，对于这个博览会的发展，也可以给我们建议啊。这个以他们在各地区的经验来看，台湾的国际艺术博览会在亚洲地区应该扮演的角色，或者是期待。